My sister passed away a couple of years ago, and her oldest daughter called me one day and said, "I've got these boxes, and could you go through those?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went through that on a rainy spring day, and there were a lot of old pictures, and some of the people I knew and some I didn't, but there were two brown paper bags full of newspaper clippings that my grandmother had cut out over the years, and so I went through those, and there was one that was this big obituary, and the caption or the heading was "Civil War Warrior Passes," and there was a picture of this old guy with a beard, and his name was Fingal Fingalson. So I'm reading this information, and I mean, it was fairly lengthy, and it talked about him as a young man. He was 2.5 years old when he came to America with his mom and dad and brothers and sisters, and they went to Beloit, Wisconsin originally, and then they moved to Northfield, Minnesota. When he was about 9 years old, his mom and dad both died of a cholera within hours of each other. So at 9 years old, he was orphaned, but luckily he had some older brothers and sisters, and he kind of knocked around with them. And then it went on to say at age 13, he set out on his own as a carpenter. And he subsequently joined the Union Army, and he got into an outfit. He just didn't join this outfit. He had to work his way into it. He was in the 2nd Minnesota Sharpshooters, which was a pretty prestigious unit apparently, and you had to get in a circle about that big, 10 for 10 shot in that to qualify at 200 yards. So it was Fingal, an older brother by the name of Turles. He was 30 years old. Fingal was 19 years old. There was another guy by the name of Andrew Lockram, who was about 25 years old, and another friend was a guy by the name of Halvard Quee, and they were all in the same unit. All of them got wounded at Antietam, which is pretty interesting. I found out that was the single bloodiest day in U.S. military history. Over 23,000 North and South soldiers were either killed or wounded in one battle, one day at Antietam. Antietam is in Maryland, and I guess I've always had this curiosity about Civil War, and it's kind of funny. I mean, you hear about different battles, and then you learn that the South named battles for the nearest town. The North named battles for a landmark of something. At Antietam, the closest town is Sharpsburg, Maryland. So in the South, they would call the Battle of Antietam the Battle of Sharpsburg. On the North, because of the Antietam River, they called it Antietam. That was in the 17th of September, 1862. And this 2nd Minnesota is kind of the forerunner to the Green Berets or the Special Forces or the Rangers. They were called skirmishers, and they were ahead of the normal line of soldiers. And you think of the North having blue uniforms. Well, sharpshooters had dark green uniforms, and they were long, kind of long frock coats with, instead of brass buttons, they had hard black rubber buttons, and which I guess they thought at the time it was kind of like camouflage, but they were ahead of the big force of soldiers, and they would snipe and try to shoot the higher ups on the other side. And Fingal, they'd only been in the Civil War, this unit, about less than a month, and at a place called Hanover Courthouse in Maryland, and he got wounded. He was one of 2 guys that got wounded in that battle in the arm. And then at Antietam, I mean, most of their company got wounded, I think. And Andrew Lockram, who turned out to be my great-great-uncle, was wounded severely in the leg and was subsequently discharged for disability, I think, in October of 1862. This other fella, this Halver Quee, got wounded severely in the heel or the foot area, and he also got discharged for disability about the same time. And doing some research on him, we had a governor in the late 70s here in Minnesota by the name of Albert Quee. Well, he happens to be the grandson of Halver Quee. So it's just, I mean, it's just crazy. And Halver Quee and Fingal Fingalson were cousins. They both were born and grew up in Hallingdal, Norway. And when Fingal and his family moved to Northfield, they moved either into Quee's house or very close to their house. During Fingal's Civil War experiences, he was in, as far as I can determine, over 20 battles. The very first one was at a place called Hanover Courthouse in Maryland, and then he was in around Washington, D.C. area the entire time, and I mean, they were constantly in battle. And I counted up all these different battles, and like I said, Antietam was the most serious one. But then he was also at a place called Fredericksburg, which there was a siege of Fredericksburg that lasted a long time, and he was a part of that as well. He was 19 years old when he joined, and he was about 23 years old when he was discharged, and in that time he saw some horrific things and was part of that.